guys, it's Laurie of Laurie's Sewing. So you might wonder what's going on here. Yesterday I spilled a can of Diet Coke onto my little needle case, kind of late in the day, and I've been soaking it in cold water with Dawn dishwasher liquid, dishwashing liquid, the hand type. And my plan is, if it doesn't come out, if I cannot remove the stain, because it's stained almost instantly, I'll just tea dye the whole thing. Just, you know, dye it. This has been soaking for hours and hours and hours now. Alright, so I guess what I'll do is I'm going to let it soak in just some plain water to get the soap out, and we'll see. We'll see what it ends up looking like, and if I have to, I'll just soak it in some tea. This is my tea that I'm drinking right now. It's a mixture of dandelion root and hibiscus. Alright, so it's soaking in just plain cold water with nothing in it except a tea leaf. Right? Alright, so I'm just going to let this soak for a little while. And you may wonder why I always use a glass bowl when I'm tea dyeing or something like this happens. And the reason is I don't have a porcelain bowl that I could use. I've got one that's a little on the big side. It's for casseroles and stuff. But I never want to soak anything or try to tea dye anything or coffee dye or, you know, any of those types of processes. I don't want to do that in a metal bowl. I don't know that there would be a reaction, but I don't want to take a chance. So I always use glass. I prefer it for projects like this. Alright, I'm going to set this aside, kind of out of the way. And we're going to get busy on the baby outfits. So in episode 2 of the McCalls 3063 View E, this is the one that I'm going to start with, and I'm also going to make View F, but we're going to start with View E first. I don't know if I have buttons yet. We'll see. The snap tape that I ordered should be arriving in the next day or two, maybe even today. I'm not sure. There have been delays due to weather, as you may know. It's February 17th of 2021, and almost the entire country has had winter weather this month. Whether it happened early in the month or if it happened the last few days, everybody has been just absolutely overrun with cold temperatures, snow, ice. Delays in shipping are to be expected, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to take one of the pattern pieces and lay this thread out. So it might be tempting to use a 50 weight YLI beautiful cotton thread. I don't think it would show, but I really want this little project to hold up to washing, and I know that this thread, I mean, on the spectrum between these three right here, this one is most likely going to eventually wear out. White is a good choice with blue. It does show, but it's not an obnoxious difference. So I'm really leaning toward this polyester thread. Now this thread is the closest in color that I have to the Imperial Batiste. It's also a polyester thread, but it's heavy, and I think it's a this is a hand quilting thread, and I would not want to use that on this delicate fabric. So for my purposes, I will be using the Gutermann white 100% polyester thread. If you want the information, I purchased this, I believe, on Amazon. It was buy one get one, but that was a long time ago, and I'm just now getting to using the second one. Interfacing. So let's just see. Okay, so for the lining, they suggest cotton and cotton blends, which that's what the Imperial Batiste is. Okay, and we're going to need some interfacing. If I am not, yes, for view E or F, right here, it states interfacing 21 inches through 25 inches. We'll need about 3/8 of a yard. So let's get our instructions, and if I'm not mistaken, my instructions will start, I think, page 7. Okay, so I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and put this back. Now, if you do want to go ahead and get everything you need, if you're going to go like shopping and you don't have to wait on things to be sent to you, if we're making view E with me, you are going to need to get after I got the lining pieces cut for the little vest front, I removed all the pins, and then I put the two pieces right sides together with the original front. I'm checking to see where to stitch. So you do leave the front edge open, and the arm side. Everything else gets stitched. Then it's time to mark where the buttons will go, which I've done. And in the next little bit, I have located all of the containers that I believe I have that contain buttons. So, also some trims. I think this is mainly little baby trims. This, for example, I wouldn't use this in this case, but it's so pretty. There's some more of that. This is dramatic. It would be cute like on a little baby coat maybe. These are items I used to sell in my shop. Here's some lace tape. And some floche. I don't know if there's anything in here at all that I can use. I'll just leave one card out, and I'll keep an eye on those two as potential maybes. Okay, this is a jar that I think is almost all mother of pearl. So we're going to go ahead. Alright, see what we have. I don't want to use plastic. For example, I know that's a plastic button. It's acrylic. I don't like it. Not for what I'm doing. After digging around, I finally found 4 of the 2-hole buttons. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Okay, mother of pearl, and they look very nice. I think that's a good choice. And I'm going to go ahead and sew this piece, this little section of our project right here. So 3/8 of an inch is our seam allowance. The top, shoulder, arm side, and side seam are not stitched. So I'll only be stitching along this bottom edge right here, along this little edge right here, this edge here, and the front. That's the only thing I'll be sewing on both pieces. And when I come back, we'll clip those curves, get it turned out, press it. I will be using a press cloth, by the way, when I work with this, because I don't want anything to happen to it. And for a press cloth, I'm using clean white kitchen towels that you generally see either ready to be embroidered or they've already been embroidered. They're just 100% cotton. You can buy a press cloth, an actual product that is called a press cloth, but I don't feel like I need to do that. I have 3 or 4 pieces that I have used. I've had to cut little sections off for various projects, or if something happened to it where I wasn't confident that it wouldn't leach onto this or whatever I'm using. But I washed those yesterday, and this is what they look like. They're just little pieces of kitchen towel that has been washed and dried and washed and dried. I can double these over and use 2 layers if I want to. The nice thing about it is it's fairly, while it is opaque, it's also fairly transparent. I mean, you can kind of see through it. So at least while I'm ironing, I can. I also can tell at a glance if they need to be washed. So I have 3 pieces that I use. They're, as you can tell, they've been kind of, you know, cut up in various different project requirements. But anyway, so I have these clean, ready to go for this little project. Just keep them on my ironing board and use them as needed. Sometimes I'll put one down, put my project on top of it, and then cover it with another press cloth. Do it that way. But anyway, so I'll be back. This will be pressed, stitched, and ready to be turned out. Alright, we have, both have been stitched. I did find in stitching both of them that it's easier to just stitch off and then stitch back on and stitch off and stitch back on, instead of trying to go from here around, turn, because this fabric is very lightweight, and even with a microtex needle that can sometimes be difficult without a leader fabric. I did have a little bit of an issue right here. This is the one that I did not stitch on and then stitch off. You can see on this one I just kind of went around the curve, and on this one I stitched all the way off and then stitched back on again. All right. And I did lock my stitches by going straight forward and then back up a couple stitches and then come forward again. Next, we will remove these pins. And our instructions say to clip, let's see, cut corners diagonally and clip the curves. And they're showing this in here. Okay, so they want us to clip right here, not through our stitching, of course, and then clip those, and then we're just going to take our scissors and make little clips just to the stitching that we've done, not through it, of course. Okay, we clipped here. We need to clip here as well, according to their diagram. Okay. Then we'll do the same with this one. So we had a few clips into this. Clip this corner. We did not have, no, we did not have their So the next step after you get these done is turn them right side out, press, and then baste these 3 raw edges together with basting stitches on both sides. So I'll go ahead and take care of that. And then with right sides up, so this would be the right sides. I could flip these over and have this be the right sides. Either way, because I'm using fabric that looks the same on both the front and the back. However, this side is marked where the buttons will go. So I am going to simply do that. And then we place our buttons right on top. When I got to this stage, I realized I could have used little decorative buttons. They are non-functioning, so they don't have to be actual buttons. Okay, so now I'm going to use this weird method to figure out where the buttons are going to go. I'm poking pins through my marks right through the center of the little X's that I made from the pattern piece. So where the pattern was marked, I made those marks, and now I'm going to do this funny little thing where I'm going to turn that over so that I have the pin head. I'm going to flip the other piece on top, and you can see where those pin heads are. And I'm using a chalk pencil to mark the other fabric vest front. And now all I have to do is line up those little dots that I made on both pieces so that I have the 4 dots in the same place, and just kind of make a mark in case it gets moved. Pin it in place. Okay, and I decided to do a decorative bullion type stitch to hold the buttons on. I'm just going to wrap, I ended up wrapping 12 times around my needle, and I go into the second buttonhole and then just manipulate using that tension on the top to pull that through. It got a little snarled because I went back through a knot on the back side, but you just pull and fiddle and eventually it will straighten out. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull it through and then kind of manipulate the little knot a little bit and tie it off on the back. To give the buttons a little extra oomph, I decided to add some mint green embroidery floss, and I just did another bullion rose. It's a 4-strand 6-wrap bullion rose there. I'm using the scissors for tension, and okay, I think it turned out really cute. And it's about here that I realize I forgot to cut out the lining for the front and for the 2 back bodice pieces. So the front lining is cut on the fold and the back would be cut individually, so you have 2 pieces. And I'm just going to cut it out. Now for this one I'm using just the pattern piece, but you'll see when I'm doing the back, I actually just left the back pieces attached to the pattern piece when I cut that part out. Okay, remove those pins and then kind of look to see if what I have matches what is in the instructions, which I have almost identical right there. So comparing those to what I have looks good. And then we just stitch at the side seams and across the shoulders. Now we are not supposed to be stitching that arm side area. That will come later. Okay, and this is the two back pieces, and as you can see I did just leave the pattern attached to the original two that I cut, trying not to waste any fabric. So I was being kind of skinchy using what I have, which is good. We should do that. Fabric needs to be used up. Right, getting ready to get that pinned and cut. And now I will be cutting out the heat and bond, press on, fusible, however you want to say it, interfacing for the two back facings. So on the actual back bodice you will apply an interfacing to the two back closure edges, and that goes on the inside of those two back bodice pieces, one on the right and one on the left, because this garment closes in the back as well as in the snap area of the, of the legs of the bubble or the romper. Okay, I'm just going very slowly using my rotary cutter. My paper cutting scissors there are getting really dull, and I will not use my fabric scissors on interfacing. I figure I can change a rotary cutter blade easier than replacing a pair of scissors. Okay, so I've got that pinned. I will be pressing it down shortly. I'm just checking to make sure that that's going to line up properly, and it does. I'm just marveling at how cute it looks at this point. I didn't have little boys. My children were girls, so sewing for little boys is kind of fun for me. Okay, so here I've pressed it on and stitched it. So the entire bodice has now been stitched to the little vest area. I'm trimming off those threads. And I stitched over a thread there, so I'm just kind of cutting that off. Sometimes that happens. Okay, so after I got that all stitched up, cut off the threads, turned it out to check it, make sure everything looked good, which it did, with the exception of that side seam right there. I needed a bigger seam allowance. Everything else, not so bad. And coming up is the collar. Now for some reason I cannot seem to get the audio to work on this section of the video. So I'm just going to let it run, and I will put graphics up if I need to help explain what I'm doing, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So these have been interfaced. This is one collar and this is the other collar. And the next step is to then place the facing, the fabric facing onto these little collar pieces, right sides together. So the outside of this fabric is on the outside and the interfacing is on the outside. So the right side of the facing and the right side of the collar are together. And then we're going to stitch all the way around, starting here. We'll stitch and we will stitch and we will stitch. And the same thing on this one. So we will start here and we will stitch. Oops, we will stitch, we will stitch, and we will stitch. This gets left open and this gets left open. Okay? Now I do want to pin or clip because I don't want these to slip out of a perfect alignment. I think I'm going to clip because they have interfacing and I don't want that to get marked by pinholes, which I've noticed a couple of times. My really thin pins have left a couple of odd marks. Okay, now right here, this one is just a little bit bigger than the one that I used the interfacing on. So I'm going to trim this little excess off right here. I'm actually going to use my rotary cutter again, like so. All right. Now I'm not going to worry about any of the other spots on the collar that might be off just a little bit, but this right here needs to be pretty much bang on. Okay, same thing with this one. Once those collar sections are stitched, trim your threads. Check to make sure that both of the collar sections look the same. Now's the time to fix it if they don't. Clip the corners on the stitched sides and trim down the seam allowances. Nip into the remaining seam allowance to help that collar curve turn out pretty. And then once you've done that, open it up and see if you've made any mistakes, and again, now's the time to fix it. Then turn the little collar sections right side out. You can use a point turner to get the corners nice and pointy. Carefully, you don't want to poke all the way through. And again, same thing for both. I apologize for being off camera. I don't really understand why. It just happens. Alright, so I went ahead and did a couple other steps. One was to baste. I decided to go ahead and do that because I don't know how far I'm going to get today. And sometimes, even left alone, it seems like fabrics can stretch. So I decided I wasn't taking any chances and I would just go ahead and do the basting stitch. And we are supposed to tack the two collar pieces together. So there is a diagram on the instructions. It tells you to tack the front edges together 5/8 of an inch down from the neck edge. I kind of had to figure out where I wanted it to be and how to do it. So I put it into my sewing machine like this and allowed my sewing machine to stitch it this way instead of this way. So I only did a couple of stitches because if I have to take it out, I don't want to be taking out a whole bunch of different stitches here. So I just went, you know, over, back, behind, over, back, behind, and that was enough for me. Okay. Then, of course, I had to take it out. The first time, I thought I was recording. I wasn't, full disclosure. But I wanted to let you know I did do this. The first time I did it, I did not pin these two together. And this collar piece ended up, the point of the collar was way up here. It was so bad. And that was when I looked at the camera and realized, I'm not recording. So I took it out and then I just went ahead and redid it. But just to let you know, I recommend that you pin these two pieces together when you do this little stitch. So, and another thing I want to say about that is don't stitch it too many times. I don't think a pin would hold it to the point that it would need to be held. I think thread is definitely needed, but don't do too many stitches. That's kind of my advice right there. Okay, so we have the collar, we have the front vest, the buttons are applied, the front piece is here, we have the two back pieces, and we have the collar. Now I believe the next step is that we will be pinning the collar to the front in some manner. Okay, I'm desperately trying to keep sewing, and I've got an asparagus dish that I need to go take care of. I found a kind of a neat recipe utilizing pecans and spices and asparagus and roasting, and it sounds really good, so I'm going to go take care of it. I got my asparagus washed and trimmed and in the pan and drizzled with olive oil and some spices and seasonings, and now all I have to do is go preheat the oven. The asparagus has been in the refrigerator like that all afternoon, so I want to get them cooking. All right. Okay, so tomorrow when I come back, we will pick up where we've left off, which basically is stitch the collar on and then do the facings, put them all on there, and after we get the top part done, we do the sleeve. That's coming up real soon. That's going to be so cute. I just can't wait. All right, guys. So this will end episode 2. I'll go ahead and get this video up. And then the next time I see you, we will have started on finishing this up, get the little pants put together, and then in the white Imperial Batiste we'll be doing view F. I love sewing baby clothes. Oh, I just love it so much. So anyway, thank you again for joining me. I hope that today was a better day for most of you. If I'm not mistaken, today was the Random Acts of Kindness Day, and I hope something really sweet and kind happened to each of you. I received a really sweet little message on my Facebook page that made my day, and anyway, thanks again. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. It means the world to me. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.